Okay everyone, we're about to make pancakes. We've got pancake day coming up during half term, so this is for Newbridge kids to have a go at pancakes during half term. You take a small or a large bowl, get yourself some plain flour. You'll see the recipe on the website. Plain flour goes into a large bowl and you make a well in the middle. So you can just do that with your hands, you're just making a little well in the centre of the flour. And we're going to plop our egg into that well. The egg, remember, needs to be the right way up if you don't want dribbling. So crack that on the side and turn over, or you can crack it on the top using a knife, something like that. Put your thumbnails into there and you draw your thumbnails apart so that one goes that way, one goes that way, so that your egg comes out and goes into that well easily without any shell coming out. So use every last little bit of egg because that egg is really good for you. Okay. We're now going to whisk, and we're going to whisk that egg in the middle in that well so that it takes in a little bit of the flour a bit at a time. And when it does take that flour in, it starts to get thicker and thicker. As it gets thicker, we'll start to add a little bit of milk so that the consistency becomes slightly more liquid again. So when you look at the surface of the flour, it starts to look as though each particle of flour is starting to go into the egg. So you just whisk it like that. That's going to take too long. So we're going to move on now to use an electric mixer. So when you use an electric mixer, make sure that you've got the right beaters, pop them into the right places and click. Okay, what you can see is Josh using the electric whisks, which is obviously quicker, and he's keeping those whisks in the centre where the batter is being produced. So just moving the batter around a little bit, he's keeping the beaters in the same position. And he's listening to the sound of the machine, because as the flour starts to go into the batter, the mixture gets thicker and thicker. And that means that you can actually hear a change in the sound of the mixer. So when you hear that change where the machine is straining a little bit, then you know that your mixture is getting a little bit thicker. So then he adds a bit more of the milk. And then putting the mixer back in position and carrying on. So if you were doing this by hand, you can do it by hand of course, you would use a whisk. And you just keep doing the same thing, working away in the centre with your whisk. It takes a while, but because you're doing it like this, the starch is becoming softened and you're gradually developing that batter with the particles of flour coming in slowly. What the books will tell you is that you shouldn't whisk too hard, but to just do it gently, so you just have that mixer onto the low level of speed. You wouldn't have it on the highest speed. So you can put quite a bit more in, Josh. That's lovely. Move it around a little bit more. After a while you get quite a lot of batter in the bottom of the bowl, and you can start moving those beaters round a wee bit so that more flour gets mixed in. You don't want to get too much flour at once because it might go lumpy, so you're just moving round a little bit, mixing that flour in bit by bit. Once you've got all the flour in, then you add all the rest of the milk to your batter. This method that we're using, which takes quite a while, is particularly good when you're making Yorkshire puddings. Yorkshire puddings, they rise because of steam. So you imagine all that liquid there, all the milk, the water that's in the milk, that's what rises up because it turns into steam in the oven. Our pancakes, You'll see in a moment they're just going to be fried. They just cook on both sides, and they rise up a little bit because of the steam, and they rise up a little bit because of the air that Josh is whisking into them now. You can mix it all around there, Josh, and get all the last of the flour in. All the milk in. And that's fabulous, good job. So that's the batter completed. The only last thing we need to do is pour that batter back into the measuring jug, and that's so that it's easier then to pour from there when we're doing the cooking. Well done, Josh. So now we're going to cook our pancakes. This is the fun bit because we get to eat soon. So you need a pan that's got quite a smooth edge to it, one that's going to find it easier later when we're flipping. And we need some oil, so just ordinary vegetable oil, or you could use olive oil. You only put a tiny bit in, really the amount of a 5p piece, so only a tiny little bit of oil, because this is a low-fat dessert. Get that pan heated, decide which ring you're going to use, which burner you're going to use, press the ignition first, and then press and turn on about halfway. Make sure that's lit, and then we're going to be heating up that oil. As the oil does heat up, it becomes a little bit more runny. I'm going to cook one pancake after another, and we're going to put them onto a plate when they're finished. They don't stick together, but if you particularly were worried about them sticking together, you could put some greaseproof paper between each one, but have your plate ready to put them on when they're finished. This oil is getting heated. I think everybody knows that the first pancake doesn't work out very well. It often sticks, and sometimes it doesn't turn over properly, but the second one's always better. So I've got my batter. I've also got a fish slice in case I need it, that's when things go wrong, and a palette knife, which is what you use. That's the bendy one, that's what you use to make your pancakes. So my oil is getting slightly runny now, so I'm just moving that pan around a little bit so that it covers the bottom of the pan, so that it's got a slight coating of oil all over. So when we move on to our next one, we'll only need a tiny bit of oil again. When I'm happy that that's hot, I'm going to pour the batter in using the measuring jug, but I'm only going to pour it in so that it's half full. I'm only going to half fill this pan, and then I'll swill the pan round to coat the bottom of the pan. I don't want my pancakes to be really heavy and thick. I want them to be lovely and thin like crepe Suzette. So that's now hot. How do I know it's hot? I know it's hot because it's been on there for a few moments, and also the oil is very thin. Don't heat it too much. If you heat it too much, you're going to get smoke, and that would be dangerous. So it's hot, I'm hoping. I'll just pour a little tiny dot in just to see if it's hot. Yes, it is, it's sizzling, so I'm happy with that. So I'm going to pour that batter in until it's half full, it's half covered, the pan, and then move it round ever so slightly at an angle, hopefully you can see that, so that that batter now slopes over the whole of the bottom. Does it? No, I've got a couple of gaps, so just a little bit in there, so that all of those little gaps are filled, and I've got a coating of batter across the bottom of the pan. That's now going to cook on the bottom. It's conduction, so it cooks through the bottom of the pan. That's going to cook. It doesn't take very long, and you get tiny little holes appearing, little holes that the air has pushed through, so it looks bubbly. That's cooking nicely. You may be able to see from there that you're getting little lumps. Now the lumps are bubbles of air from underneath rising up and pushing that pancake up in little lumps, and that's a clue to me that it's getting cooked on the bottom, so it's nearly cooked. It's starting to get slightly brown around the edges, so I'm just going to get my palette knife and just have a sneaky look underneath and see if it's brown underneath all over. So I'm just curling the edges of the pancake up using my palette knife and looking underneath. I can see that it's slightly brown underneath, but not brown all over. When I go underneath to the middle section of the pancakes, it's not quite cooked yet. So if I try to flip that now, it's not going to be good. It's going to stick in the middle because it's not cooked in the middle. So I'm just having another look now. It's been cooking while I've been talking. I can get my palette knife underneath. In fact, my palette knife goes underneath quite nicely, but then it sticks in the middle. So I'm pretty sure that that pancake is still not cooked right in the middle. This first one is the trickiest. First one never really works that well because your pan's just getting hot. Right, lovely. That looks as if it's nearly cooked on the bottom. My knife is going right underneath. In fact, if I give it a shake, my pancake is moving. So I know I'm at that point where I can turn it over. So I've gone underneath with the palette knife. I'm happy it's moving, and now I'm going to flip. Okay, I've got some students with me who are going to do this next. So we'll do this over the cooker so that it doesn't actually fall on the floor if things go wrong. The action I'm going to take is I'm going to go out, up and back again, but I'm going to do that a lot faster. So the action is out, up and back again to catch it when it comes down, but you do that really quickly. So it's moving, here we go. Okay, and again, well not again because I just want to cook underneath it, but you could practice it again if you want, just to feel well practiced at doing that flipping. Now if you don't want to do that flipping, that just looks too scary, use the palette knife and just move it over with your palette knife, or if you've got a fish slice at home, get the fish slice underneath, flip it over like that. When you're cooking the underneath part, where I've flipped it over, it doesn't take very long, it takes less time. So I'm just looking underneath now, and that's already brown on that other side. So just to show you that flipping again, in case you want to see it again, you're going out, up and back. It's a small movement. And there's my pancake. I'm just going to slide that onto the plate. There we go. Okay girls, do you want to have a go? So your gas is still on this side. Whoever has that pan's going to work better because it's already hot. And you're on this side, you'll need to heat your oven. Yeah, well done. Switch off, well done. So sweet.